Lilies and Lilacs, Episode 7, Fog.
Huh? What's going on?
Tessica stared out of her window to the back alley behind Lilies and Lilacs. The view wasn't usually great, but she could see to the far street through an alley, or the back of the buildings around the tavern. This morning, a thick fog had dominated the alleys. She couldn't even really see the other buildings, but instead ghostly shapes. Tessica went through her normal routine and got prepared for the day. Foggy days weren't unheard of, but the air felt more cool and crisp than it should. Winter was swiftly approaching, so perhaps that was why it was chilly. But this cold felt wrong. Tessica walked into the lobby of the inn and saw Vonrad behind the counter, staring out through the window toward the street. The streets of Autumn Bliss were saturated with fog.
Crazy weather we're having, right?
Vonrad frowned and then focused on Tessica for a moment. His mouth was a small frown under his nose.
Are you okay? You look unwell.
Oh, I'm all right, I suppose. I just had one of those strange, half-awake sort of pseudo-dreams when I got up this morning. I'm a little startled, is all.
Oh? What happened?
Well, I saw Therese standing over my bed. At first, I thought I had died, and he was there to walk with me. But instead, he told me something.
Tessica brought her hands to the nape of her throat.
What did he say to you?
He told me to be careful of the fog, to not go out if I could help it. I blinked more awake, and then sat up in bed. As sure as I was dreading, there was fog outside.
Tessica bit her lip and then stared out into the fog as well.
I mean, we've had foggy days before, but this feels strange. I don't like it.
I agree. This fog does feel strange. I'm trying to remember if this sort of thing has ever happened to us before, but I'm not sure. If you decide to venture out, be careful.
I do have a couple of errands to do before we open up. I mean, it's just fog, right? I should be fine.
My dear, we live in a time of magic, monsters, and mysteries. It could be just fog, or maybe not.
Thanks, old man. That totally makes me feel better.
For a moment, Vonrad turned to her, confused. But then he started laughing hard.
I'm so sorry, my dear. That was rather cruel of me, wasn't it?
It was, you old jerk.
Tessica grabbed a cloak, her wicker basket, and a dagger they had stored in a closet.
I'm going to the distributor to get some supplies until our shipment comes in later. Do you need anything?
Would you like for me to accompany you, my dear?
No. I want someone to be here to assist patrons, and I don't see Morden yet. Besides, you aren't supposed to go out in the fog, remember? Do you think I want Therese haunting me too? No, thank you.
Vonrad laughed again as Tessica stepped out into the fog. At least the sweet old man was smiling again. Tessica crept out into the street and her skin froze slightly. To ensure the fog stayed out of Lilies and Lilacs, she closed the door firmly behind her. When she turned back around, a thick wall of gray fog stared back at her. It was eerily silent and quite still. Tessica looked up, and obviously the sky was hidden as well. She took quick steps down the street, and the sound of her feet against the cobblestone made her nerves twist a little. Without seeing the buildings, she would have to remember where to go with muscle memory. Rather than walk in the middle of the road, she kept to the side by the building. The last thing she needed was to be trampled by a carriage or horse. Slight whispers and whistles were barely heard, and when Tessica stopped to pinpoint where it could be coming from, the sounds would almost swirl around her like fireflies. Tessica eventually found her way to the distributors, but the doors were closed tightly.
Hello? Mr. Cartwright, are you there?
Tessica banged on the door.
Mr. Cartwright, it's Tessica from Lilies and Lilacs. Are you there?
You bitch!
Tessica whirled around and placed her back against the locked door. Her eyes scanned the fog. Silence. Stillness.
Why couldn't you just say yes? It would have been so much easier.
Tessica's body started to tense as a growing horror awakened inside her. She drew the dagger and held it out in front of her.
Who's there? I'm armed, and I will stab you if you don't leave me alone.
The sound of footsteps against cobblestone filtered through the fog. Tessica's dagger wobbled in her grip as she kept gazing all around. The sound got closer. Her stomach tightened. A shape started to emerge from the distance, and Tessica shrank down a little. Her jaw clenched. She couldn't even breathe.
Tess, is that you? Are you okay?
Levin came upon her and then gazed around angrily.
Is someone bothering you?
Tessica gazed at him for a moment, and then her whole body began to relax. She let her dagger drop a little, and then she let out a few hysterical chuckles. When Levin came up to her, she resheathed the dagger.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I am now. I swear to the goddess, I heard voices. And I felt like someone was breathing down my neck.
You too? Great, just great.
Wait, did you see something too?
Yes, I did. The mayor has called for a state of emergency until this is handled. It's not safe to be out and about. Let me escort you home.
Wait, it's not safe?
Something weird is going on, so in my opinion, I'd recommend staying in. Other people have seen things in the fog as well.
What sorts of things?
For a long moment, Levin peered into the fog, a severe frown on his face.
Let's get you back to L&L, okay?
Tessica walked beside Levin down the foggy street, and she shivered due to the chill. For the most part, it was quiet, with the exception of muted whispers. Sometimes they sounded sad, while other times menacing. Tessica kept glancing about, although she couldn't see anything. Levin gripped his spear shaft tightly.
Hey, Lev. What did you see in the fog? You seem very agitated, and it's freaking me out. Did you see, a monster?
No. I saw something worse than a monster.
What did you see?
I saw Marlene and Trista.
Tessica stopped, and she held her hand to the base of her throat. Tears rimmed the bottom of her eyes, and her body tensed.
Oh, Lev. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. Let's get you somewhere safe. Other people have claimed to see demonic silhouettes in the fog too, so I would hate for you to get caught up in that.
Levin started moving again, and Tessica stepped with him.
So who were you shouting at?
It sounded like two people I never want to hear from again. Two people who should be...
Dead? Yeah.
Why is this happening? I don't understand.
Well, I don't know what happened exactly. I know whose fault it is.
Adventurers.
For a long moment, they both just walked in silence and turned a corner at an intersection.
I swear to the goddess, if they didn't bring in so much gold, I'd want nothing to do with them. They're always causing trouble.
Tell me about it. And I don't even see any of that gold. All I see is trouble. Adventurers are so entitled, thinking that just because they can slay a dragon, they can be disrespectful to people like us. Hopefully they can fix this. The mayor has hired any willing adventurers to get to the bottom of this.
Tessica and Levin eventually got to Lilies and Lilacs.
Thank you for walking me home. Are you sure you're going to be okay? Wandering out in the fog?
I have to be out there to keep you all safe. Are you going to close the tavern?
Hell no, I'm not. Just like you, I have a responsibility to my community. People are going to be scared, and they need a place to make them feel better. We have enough provisions in the cellar to last a few days before we go bone dry.
Look at us, a bunch of bleeding heart servants of the people. Stay safe, Tess.
You too, Lev.
Tessica watched Levin march back into the fog before she walked back into the tavern.
You little bitch! You will be mine.
No. Get away from me.
No one can save you.
You will pay for what you did to us. It's all your fault.
No. Leave me alone.
Tessica opened her eyes and she brought the blankets close to her chest. She laid in her bed and she gazed around her bedroom. The room was empty and she was alone. Yet Tessica's skin crawled in goosebumps. Her insides were being churned by unseen forces. Forces Tessica was afraid to even give names to. When she finally got up, Tessica gazed outside toward the alley. Her heart twisted. A pair of handprints were pressed against the window.
Oh, goddess, darling. You look terrible.
Tessica looked up groggily at Fonica, who had just strolled into the tavern. She yawned and stretched a little.
It's this damned fog. It's giving me nightmares, or hallucinations, or something. It has us all affected.
I'm sorry to hear that. Well, I haven't seen anything. I keep hearing weird screeches and chittering. It's been days. When is this going to let up?
Not until someone finds the source of what's causing this.
Noswald was seated at a table, and he had half a pint of ale in him. A beautiful medallion hung around his neck, one that he usually didn't wear. Fonica turned to him.
So you think something caused this?
Oh, I know something did! The air is saturated with magic and evil intent. And those aren't hallucinations or whatever you're experiencing. Those are spirits. And maybe something worse. The longer this goes on, the worse it's going to get.
Spirits? Oh no, poor Zeddy.
Zeddy? Where is she? I haven't seen her this morning.
Oh. She's in her room. Crying. I don't know what she's seeing or hearing, but whatever it is, it's tormenting her. I feel really bad for her.
Noswald stood up and he approached Tessica, his face cast in a deep frown. He reached into his bag and then pulled out an identical medallion to the one he was wearing.
There's no time to spare. Go, give this to her now. This will keep the spirits and other malevolent things at bay and protect her.
The man gestured it to Tessica. For a moment, she just glanced down at it.
You're giving her one of your artifacts? That's so sweet.
Well, Zeddy always smiles at me, and to think of her in emotional anguish, well, it's heart-wrenching.
Tessica took the artifact and then hugged Noswald tightly. The gesture was so sudden that the enchanter tensed up, and he froze.
Relax, you soft-hearted sweetie. It's just a hug.
Tessica took back steps away from the pair of them.
Thank you so much, Nos. I'll give this to her right now. In fact, I want to buy some more from you, too.
As do I.
Tessica sprinted into the inside of Lilies and Lilacs and toward Zeddy's door. She stopped and knocked.
Zeddy, are you in there? Please let me in.
She placed her ear to the door and heard soft sobbing.
Zeddy?
The crying got harder.
Vonrad! Master key, now!
The old man ran down the hallway with a single key. With a swiftness, Tessica snatched it and unlocked Zeddy's door. Zeddy's room was dark, with the curtains drawn over the windows. Light poured in through the room, and Tessica saw Zeddy seated, cross-legged against the wall. Her hair was messy. Tears stained her cheeks. And Zeddy held a drawn dagger. The blade was pressed against the insides of her wrist, but blood wasn't drawn yet. For just a moment, Zeddy looked up at Tessica with woe-drenched irises. Tessica rushed her.
What are you doing? No!
Thank the goddess that Zeddy just sat there like a child being scolded by a parent. Tessica pulled the dagger free from Zeddy's grip, and the former adventurer let her. As soon as Tessica had it in her own grasp, she threw it against the wall. It clattered loudly. Zeddy curled up into a ball and sobbed into her hands.
It's all my fault. They're dead because of me.
Tessica bent down and hugged Zeddy in a tight embrace.
No, it's not your fault. It will be okay.
No, it is. I'm the one who wanted to take that stupid quest. I was arrogant to think we could easily handle it. I should have been smarter. I can hear their voices and almost see their faces. It's too much to bear.
Shh, it's going to be okay.
No, I shouldn't be alive.
Yes, you should. The reason you're seeing this is because of the fog. It's evil. Noswald said so. He gave me something to help you.
Zeddy sniffled and looked up to Tessica.
To help me?
Tessica nodded and then placed the medallion around Zeddy's neck. For a brief moment, her body shimmered with tiny sparkles. As soon as the display was done, she looked around the room, astonished.
The voices. They've stopped. What is this thing?
Noswald said it will protect you from spirits and such.
Wait. You said he gave this to you? For me?
He said he hated that you were in emotional anguish.
I hate to interrupt, but would you like for me to bring her some food and drink?
Yes, please. Zeddy, are you going to be okay now? No more... you know.
I'm still really upset, but now I'm not seeing or hearing the ghosts of my dead friends. So... when?
How about you come with us into the common room? There aren't a lot of people at the moment.
Tessica and Zeddy walked into the common room where Noswald and Fonica were seated. Noswald's eyes lit up when he saw Zeddy.
Oh, hi. I hope...
Zeddy wrapped Noswald in a tight hug. She whispered something to him, and Noswald smiled. Fonica was wearing one of the medallions, and she handed one to Tessica. As soon as Tessica put it on, a great weight lifted from her chest. Sparkles danced across her body.
He plans on giving these to us for 50 gold each. He had 2, though.
Can I please place an order for Vonrad and Mordon to have them too?
Zeddy stepped away and sat at a table where Vonrad had placed food.
Sure, I can make more in a day or so.
So, Noswald, you know about magic. What could have done this? Was it created by a ritual, or maybe an artifact?
Well, if it was an artifact, it would have to be an epic level item.
An epic item? Like the kind found in ruins?
I suppose so. Why?
Fonica frowned deeply as she stared off into nothingness.
What's wrong?
Sheecher, the old man who runs the antique store, bought some weird little stone item from an adventurer. It was super creepy looking. But the old man said he liked how ominous it looked. He showed me after he bought it. The thing is, the very next day, we had this fog.
I suppose that could very well be the thing that started all of this. If he still has it, I can tell if it's the source.
The thing is, he doesn't have it anymore. Last night there was a break-in and the idol was stolen.
Stolen? How bizarre.
Well, if that is the source and it's stolen, then we need to find it. Otherwise, we...
Look! The fog!
Tessica glanced outside to see the fog that had dominated Autumn Bliss begin to thin. Within moments, the street was clear. Tessica opens the door and she stepped outside. A star-filled sky was above her head.
Is it really over?
Celerin, the High Cleric for the most wonderful goddess in existence, the Falgus, stood at the bell tower window for her temple. The wind was non-existent as a massive cloud had engulfed the city. Within the confines, ghostly whispers, faint echoes of what once was, and the slivers of demonic forces danced within. Though Celarin couldn't see anything, she smiled widely into the fog. Celarin gripped a stone idol of a bulbous figure, with a fat stomach, sharp toenails, and fingernail claws. The figure was bald, had no pupils, and a maul of sharp teeth. Celarin held up the idol so she could look into its face.
You naughty little thing, thinning the barrier between dimensions. How many of your master's dogs got out, I wonder? It doesn't matter. They will all fall beneath the glory of Thalfagas. Your master will submit to mine, just as he always had. He is weak.
The idol said nothing.
You, on the other hand, will be quite useful to me. Instead of heralding the coming of Lorvok, you shall bend and serve Thalfagas. You will aid me in bringing forth a ravaging damnation on the unworthy. Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
If the idol could cry, it would have. Celarin held up the idol over her head.
Time to go to sleep, idol. Sleep until I wake you back up.
The idol began shimmering with an eerie blue light, and then two magical beams shot out through the idol's eyes. The beams flew to an unknown spot above the fog. There was a bright flash, and suddenly the fog began to thin. Within moments, the fog was gone. Celarin gazed over the visible layout of autumn bliss, and she laughed.